Most of the time, Joe Biden conducted himself in Cornwall as the familiar foreign diplomat he's always been when he was Vice President. There was some concern about his mental capacity, which is just painful to watch sometimes. You know, I know Chris Kenny says the man should be in a home, and sometimes I can't disagree, and he shouldn't be leading the country. But take a look at this footage of the president wandering around, lost in a cafe in England. It was posted on Friday and largely ignored by mainstream media.
How are your meetings going in Cornwall, Mr. President?
I beg your pardon?
How are your meetings going here in Cornwall?
Very well.
Come on.
Nice to meet you. They always do.
He looked stunned. At least the crowd found it entertaining anyway. Now, let's look at one of his official addresses. I think he went off script because he forgot the standing-in ambassador.
To thank Gail Lempert, who is our charge at the embassy, filling in for the ambassador. We'll have one soon, but she did a great job.
And then apparently some of us don't know what COVID is.
I know you all know, but a lot of people may not know what COVID is.
Really? And off the back of a speech, the usual protocol is taking reporter questions. But, of course, Biden has a special exemption, and this time he threw his staff under the bus.
I'm sorry, I'm going to get in trouble with staff if I don't do this the right way. Jennifer Jacobs, Bloomberg.
Enough. I come back to the point I've made many times before. This guy will be very lucky to last his full term. Okay.
We can work together with Russia. For example, in Libya, we should be opening up the passes to be able to go through and provide food assistance and vital assistance to a population that's in real trouble. I think I'm going to try very much hard to. And by the way, there's places where. I shouldn't be starting off and negotiating in public here, but let me say it this way. Russia has engaged in activities which we believe are contrary to international norms, but they have also bitten off some real problems they're going to have trouble chewing on. And for example, the rebuilding of Syria, of Libya, this is... The many more things we know we have to do. So I want to thank you all. I really mean it from the bottom. I want to thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do.
You mentioned your sit-down with Vladimir Putin and Russian aggression that came up in your conversations today. I'd like to ask you two questions, if I may, on that front. Is it your sense walking into this meeting that Americans back home shouldn't expect much in terms of an outcome? Could you provide some specifics on what a successful meeting would look like to you? Are there going to be specific concessions you want Putin to make? And then I'll just give you my follow-up right now. You've met Vladimir Putin before. What have you learned about him that informs how you approach this sit down with him? And what's your mindset walking into a meeting with a former KGB agent who you've said has no soul?
I'll tell you all that when it's over. Look, I've been doing this a long time. The last thing anyone would do is negotiate in front of the world press as to how he's going to approach a critical meeting with another adversary and or someone who could be an adversary. It's the last thing I'm going to do. But I will tell you this. I'm going to make clear to President Putin that there are areas where we can cooperate if he chooses. And if he chooses not to cooperate and acts in a way that he has in the past relative to cybersecurity and some other activities, then we will respond. We are responding kind. There need not be. We should decide where it's in our mutual interest, in the interest of the world, to cooperate and see if we can do that. And the areas where we don't agree, make it clear what the red lines are. I have met with him. He's bright, he's tough, and I have found that he is as they say when you used to play ball, a worthy adversary. But the fact is that I will be happy to talk with you when it's over, not before, about what the discussion will entail. Nancy Cordes, CBS.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also have two questions about Vladimir Putin. The first is, have any of the world leaders you've met with this week expressed concern that by meeting with President Putin this early in your presidency, that it'll look like you're rewarding him?
What's your second question?
The second question is what it will mean for the U.S.-Russia relationship if Alexei Navalny were to die or be killed in prison.
Every world leader here as a member of NATO that spoke today, and most of them mentioned it, thanked me for meeting with Putin now. Every single one that spoke. And I think there were probably about 10 or 12 that spoke to it, saying they were happy that I did that I was going to do that. And they thought it was thoroughly appropriate that I do. And I had discussions with them about, in the open, about what they thought was important from their perspective and what they thought was not important. And so the interesting thing is, I know, and I'm not being critical of the press, I really mean this, give my word. But generically, you all thought, was Biden meeting him too soon? I haven't found a world leader who doesn't think it's not soon, it's just soon enough. Everyone that I've spoken to, privately and publicly, it doesn't mean there aren't some out there, but it's not likely that a head of state is going to stand up in front of 29 other heads of state and say, boy, I'm glad you're doing this, in effect. So there is a consensus. And they thanked me for being willing to talk with them about the meeting and what I intended to do.
Okay.
So I haven't found any reluctance. There may be someone, but not in open today or in the meetings I privately had as well. And Navalny's death would be another indication that Russia has little or no intention of abiding by basic fundamental human rights. It would be a tragedy. It would do nothing but hurt his relationships with the rest of the world, in my view, and with me. Jeff Zeleny, CNN.
Sir, good evening. Thank you. In a weekend interview, Vladimir Putin laughed at the suggestion that you had called him a killer. Is that still your belief, sir, that he is a killer? And I'll continue the trend if you don't mind of asking a second question. Do you believe if he does agree to cooperate, then what kind of a challenge do you find yourself in? How would you ever trust him? And if Ronald Reagan said trust but verify, what do you say to Vladimir Putin?
Answer the first question. I'm laughing too. They actually, well, look, I mean, he has made clear that the answer is, I believe he has in the past essentially acknowledged that he was there are certain things that he would do or did do. But look, when I was asked that question on air, I answered it honestly. But it's not much of a, I don't think it matters a whole lot in terms of this next meeting we're about to have. The second question was, I'd verify first and then trust. In other words, everything would have to be shown to be actually occurring. It's not about, trusting. It's about agreeing. You know, when you write treaties with your adversaries, you don't say, I trust you. You say, this is what I expect. And if you violate the agreement you made, then quote, the treaty's off, the agreement's off. And I'm hoping that that President Putin concludes that there is some interest in terms of his own interest in changing the perception that the world has of him in terms of whether or not he will engage in behavior that's more consistent with what is considered to be appropriate behavior for head of state. Ann Guerin, The Washington Post. I'm not making any promises to anyone that I don't believe are overwhelmingly likely to be kept. I think that we're at a moment where, I mean, let me put it this way. You may have had a different view, but I think an awful lot of people thought that my showing up at the G7 would not produce any kind of enthusiasm about American leadership and about where America was. I would suggest that it didn't turn out that way. I would suggest that there is the leaders I'm dealing with in NATO and the G7 are leaders who know our recent history, know generically the character of the American people, and know where the vast center of the public stands. Not Democrat, Republican, but who we are. We're a decent, honorable nation. And I think that they have seen things happen as we have that shocked them and surprised them that could have happened. But I think they, like I do, believe the American people are not going to sustain that kind of behavior. And so I don't want to get into these statistics because, that old phrase of the Israelis, there's three kinds of lies, damn lies, and statistics. But I think it's appropriate to say that the Republican Party is vastly diminished in numbers. The leadership of the Republican Party is fractured, and the Trump wing of the party is the bulk of the party, but it makes up a significant minority of the American people. Now, we'll see. We'll see. I believe that by us standing up and saying what we believe to be the case, not engaging in the overwhelming hyperbole that gets engaged in by so many today, that I guess that old expression, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. When I said I was going to deal with beating the virus, and I was going to focus on that, and I was going to get millions of shots in people's arms, it wasn't me. I just knew the American people. I knew the kind of help I'd get.